I'm John Sargent with the Alarm Museum, and we are at the California Alarm Association at the San Francisco Fairmont Hotel, and it's December 2024.
I'm Ralph W. Sevinor from the Alarm Museum. Welcome. And John, thanks for the introduction. We're delighted to actually have an opportunity to chat with an old friend, at least of mine, and that's Perry Allen, who was originally based out of L.A., who had a central station in L.A. And so, Perry, let me turn it over to you, and maybe you can give us an update where you started, where you grew up, and how you got into this industry.
California native. Grew up in Southern Cal. Did not want to become a physician. Everybody in the family is physicians. Not me. Electrical engineer, UCLA brat, Cal State brat, all that other stuff. Draft number was 33.
Vietnam. Oh, yes.
So at my age, I'm headed to 75. I was going to Vietnam. Lucked out, or I shouldn't say that, I was proud to serve. Went to work for Rockwell International. Spent many years there. Lived out at Great Neck. Worked with Spartus Sperry, also engineering. Wrote the code for some of the Polaris Poseidon submarines. Then went to work for Lytton. My dad was a builder. He built things. We put alarms in as a side.
Houses, single-family houses.
And built in shopping centers.
Oh, okay.
If we look back at LA, and that was in the 63, 64, that area, we could build homes in Los Angeles, Baldwin Hills. In fact, my dad probably built a quarter of those homes, but you couldn't buy. It still had covenants and had deed restrictions, so we didn't do that, but we built somewhere else. Nonetheless, I did not want to become a builder. Continued on in engineering, but recurring revenue came. I said, wait a minute, why are we giving this away? Thought about it for a minute or two, but continued in working industry, engineering, blah, blah, blah. Went to work for a company called Amex. Not American Express, American Mexican. The most successful 8A company in the history of the 8A programs.
8A?
8A. 8 Alpha.
Which is what?
It's a government program that was designed for small business.
I understand.
But they're not small because the Caldera family was one of the largest ones they had. We had 2,100 employees. Eventually the Caldera sold it. Those that were in senior management was very good to us. Then I decided it's time to do the alarm. We started.
Give me a timeline, Perry.
We're looking at 1980,
Okay.
81, along there. Started. Had our own little central station, which was an answering service. We had this receiver called George. And George was a V300, if you remember those.
I don't.
And that was before, it was after direct wire, etc. But we had this little thing, an answering service. Got the answering service to monitor for us. And then one night, they called, they said, George is beeping. I said, what the hell George is beeping on? This is 1 in the morning, why are they calling? You know, you start 50 accounts, 100 accounts.
Sure.
Why is George beeping? I don't know. Look outside, the building's on fire. That's why George is beeping. Long story short, moved to another building, obviously.
Another answering service.
No, our own.
Your own. So you decided to take it from an answering service to in-house.
Exactly.
And how many accounts did you have at the time?
100.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Imagine doing that today, John.
100 accounts.
Yeah.
And we had direct wire. Then we did multiplex. and we got some high-end accounts. We lucked out. Became DMP dealers of all things. Pat Tobin, bless his heart, he had this little tiny company, ours. Then he had API,
Big company.
big company, and he had Bay Alarm. That was
Right.
Pat Tobin's little niche. I think he had one other. Who are these guys? Who's Allen Alarms? I said, little company. We grew it. We looked at institutionals more than residentials. But the days of doing residentials, that was good. You made lots of good money. I won't say lots of money, but really good money. It wasn't given away. You did, $5,000, $10,000 systems, and they were nice. We used old Morse. There was a panel called a Morse, I think it was a V300 or something. Remember, it was that panel had 3 zones on it. It was a dial-up. We had people that were on direct wire, a lot of folks up in Beverly Hills area, with shunt switches that looked like a light switch. They were behind the curtain. Behind the curtain, this lady would go and flick her switch, and we put in 4, and she shut the back door. The systems were on 24/7.
Interesting. Well,
And you just shuttered everything. And Morse,
so each door or window had a
light
toggle
switch.
switch. Yeah.
and you switched it and shut at the window, shut at the door. When you came in the house, since there was no delay on these systems, you had a key switch, which was another shunt switch. And that's how they did it. They did it for years that way. So, moving on from that, industry changed. It grew. A lot of people, LA Burglar and Fire Alarm Association, got involved with that.
Now, and then when did you get involved with them? Were you from
Uh,
early times, I guess, for you? In the
Early on, probably 1984 range, 85. Good association, good contacts.
Yeah.
I think we're one of the smallest companies involved with them. But they did a lot of good work. And the city was good to deal with. So that relationship, if anybody looks at the industry, it's built on relationships.
Absolutely.
If you look at your customers, how are you doing, Mrs. Jones? Well, Mrs. Jones knows Mr. Smith, and that's how we grew the business. And then we looked at the state, and you look back and say, well, wait a minute, how do we get involved with that? We're small. We lucked out. And my folks were political. So we knew folks, or they knew folks. And we started getting involved in the state business, which we still are heavily. We looked at products that the state could use that also allowed us to provide a good product, but also a niche. And that became our niche, and probably still is.
Government work.
Government work, institutional
State.
work,
Right.
and that's sort of where we are even today. What else you want to know about?
Well, so is Central Station, because we've known each other for many, many years.
Many years.
So you started out with Central Station Software Sims.
No, did not.
Oh, okay. Where did you start?
We started with the software. Bill Agresti, if you remember
I
him.
don't.
They were out of Newport News in Virginia. And they wrote this program.
Tamco?
No, it was, what's that thing called? Alarm
Soft?
Soft.
Okay, it's coming back to me now, yes.
Yeah, and so we had Alarm Soft. And it worked great.
Right.
When we decided to go UL, though, Alarm Soft was not UL.
Right. Right.
And that was the biggest problem with them. Even though it worked perfectly.
Right.
It was not Sims, because looking at Sims was a program well before its time.
Yes.
And being an old programmer, you could look at it, and yeah, it did exactly what the alarm industry needed at that period of time.
Right.
And that's how you and I met.
Right. So that's got to be what, 30 something years?
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
Exactly. But AlarmSoft worked. AlarmSoft had a billing program. Even it worked. And it tied to
Right. Central
AlarmSoft.
station.
It did. We moved to Ken Utley at Sims. And why did we move? Well, it wasn't a reflection of AlarmSoft. It was a reflection of where the company was going.
UL. Yeah.
And the UL issue. Would AlarmSoft ever become listed? Probably not.
Right.
And I think I've lost track of it.
And UL listing was important to you.
Your
Certification.
own central station at that point in time and the listing was critical.
Okay.
I mean, you could not grow the company.
Once you got
without-
your UL listing, did it help propel the company? In other words, adherence to a higher standard? Was it an instant switch? Did you capitalize on that?
It did several things. One of which, it facilitated growth within the institutional market and the government market, because that was a requirement. As far as our fire systems, nobody probably cared. But then it became a requirement.
Right.
You weren't able to participate unless you were. And for many, many, many years, you weren't able to participate with third-party monitoring, which we moved into much, much later. So you required, one, your own station, secondly, local, thirdly, listed station.
Yeah. Where was your central station at that time?
Downtown LA.
Downtown LA.
Downtown LA. Great building. We had this little house. It was a little Spanish hacienda. And it worked perfectly for a central station. Later on, we moved into the old Wells Fargo building, Figueroa and Gage, because that building became vacant. And it was, again, a perfect central station because that's where Wells Fargo was.
Right.
And there was 1,600 pairs that went in that building. It went all the way from the frame into my building. So here you are with a built-in station.
Sure.
Yeah, it worked out. So what else is interesting?
So you sort of, from that point, you decided that the monitoring center was difficult to keep manpower and what have you.
That happened 10 years ago, 11. And we finally said, is this worth it? And is there an advantage to it? As the industry became more mechanized and third-party monitoring became more acceptable, and we did it to the point that the way we operate now is a hybrid. So we're still doing things during the day, etc. We're still doing all our own inputs. We still assign our own account numbers. In fact, our current central station still has my equipment. So they're still running on my DMPs, they're still running my 6600s, etc. So whether they know it or not.
How have you attracted people into this industry? Whether it be sales, whether it be apprentices, whether it be technicians?
The attraction died off because people found other things to do, and now it's coming back because people want their kids to be, what are you going to do that for? You're not going to make money. Well, you will, but no, you're not going to make money. It's sort of like looking at school districts today. We closed down auto shops, we closed down electrical learning, we closed all those things down. And for being chauvinistic, girls don't know how to cook, they know how to microwave. But that being said, now you're looking at people saying, this is good work. And you started attracting people because of technology. Now you still want to attract them in for the technology standpoint. Will our industry be the same 5 years from now? I don't know. Will the residential market be the same? I doubt it. I think the millennials peel and stick more, and they realize our mistake in the industry was that the value we added to a product, people stopped perceiving the value. Because they said, oh, well, my nephew can buy this thing, stick it on the wall, and it will call my cell phone.
How do we bring that back?
You bring that back by working with a client. Bring that back by saying, can we help you? What can we do for you that you are comfortable? If you want to do this yourself, I don't think you really do. You don't want to keep checking your phone. Do I have an activity? That's our job for you. So I think it's a relationship you have with a client, at least on the residential side. On the fire side, we'll always be there. I don't think they'll ever want to monitor fire, put in a fire system, etc. I think people will start being concerned with EVs in your garage if they decide to catch on fire and you don't know it. But that's where I think we are in it. Will it be the same as we had 30 years ago? Probably not. Will we see the Googles, the Amazons of the world? I think so. I don't think there's.
Well, we see them now.
Well, I don't think there's a way to turn that back. We've become so much of a society being consumable. And can I have it now? I can order it. And I think our security looks, oh, I can look at my phone.
What opportunities do you see available to look in your crystal ball for a moment? And you're a company, whether it be an emerging company, a startup, or even a company that's been around for years. What opportunities do you see in the future?
If I were starting up again today, I'd probably not do it.
Because it's
not today.
right,
Back then, perfect.
right. Because it's a difficult.
It's not just difficult.
The threshold.
Yeah, the threshold is different. Your marketing is different, and what can you get as far? We all live on recurring. That's part of our business.
Yeah, a lot of people.
Elon Musk.
They don't get that.
Oh, Elon Musk realized that. Well, you buy a Tesla, and you get FSD, $16,000 or whatever if you have an S. And Elon Musk, a year ago, 2 years ago, oh, you can do that on a subscription, on a pay by the month, and you can cancel anytime you want. It's $90. It goes on your credit card,
Right.
and you never cancel. So, I think people will look at getting into the industry. I'm not sure. I'm not sure it's something as an emerging business you get into. I think it's something that you look at as a need, but it's a need in the commercial world, institutional world, but the resi world, no. I just don't.
So you see the growth potential in the industrial, the government sector, the
it's
commercial.
in the processing sector. You're looking at growth in monitoring process control, adding value to that.
Right.
Adding value to your schools, panic buttons, etc.
Right.
So the growth is there, but it's not the growth that we saw years ago. It's in an entirely different area. So if you're going to be an institutional or a commercial market, and that's where you're going to grow, And the technology is going to facilitate that for you. Absolutely.
I was going to ask you to back up just a little bit for a second. So as you were growing the business, we're Los Angeles, did you stay concentrated in a geographical area, or
No.
did you end up with accounts here and there? And,
That's the interesting part. When you started with state business, it was all or nothing.
Right.
Okay.
So suddenly our little company started having to take accounts into Crescent City, into Tule Lake.
Oh, wow.
It's just...
How did you do it logistically?
I remember one of our first large accounts we took over, and we had to do it in 30 days. I said, how in the world are we going to get this done? We got it done. But you put all hands on deck. We even had one of my admins, she was driving a service vehicle, going and reprogramming.
Oh. Okay.
So you do it. We had an office once in Tracy, and which is Northern California, and that would allow us to deal with our commercial institutional customers, and we kept with large blocks. A chain of 20 pizza companies, for example, or McDonald's was very good with us, etc. And but we never went and opened a sales office, and I wish we would have. We probably would have grown the company better in areas to grow, let's say, into Sacramento or some of the other areas. So we used our institutional business to stay within that, but we spanned the whole state, and we're still that way. Does it make sense?
How many employees? I mean, it's just fascinating.
We started off tiny with 5 people.
And what do you have now?
32.
And you cover the entire state with 32
Yes,
employees.
absolutely.
That's.
Wow.
Do you use subcontractors?
Never. Only once.
32 people, California, north, south, east, west,
And you do
32
it.
people.
Yep,
Unreal.
yep. And you get people that really care. You get folks that want the business to grow.
Right.
And you stay with them. And you award them appropriately. Yeah.
Yeah, the fundamentals of the business are pretty easy. You take care of people, they take care of you.
Absolutely.
Right.
And people will refer you, and they'll figure out a way to continue using you.
So this is great. Really.
And you're living in Texas.
Oh, my life, yeah.
Yeah.
As of 10 years ago, I spend 1 week a month, 1 week out of 5 in California. And the rest of the time I'm in Texas.
Okay. All right.
What brought you out to Texas?
I figured maybe, was I going to sell the company? No. My father's from Texas, for one. Did that draw me there? Probably not. Friends were there. Old Alarm friends were there.
Right.
Fidel and Rosemary.
Sure.
Laredo Alarm. Laredo Alarm owned Laredo, Texas. And they sold to ADT eventually. And they kept saying, well, you should move to Texas. I said, where in Texas? Well, not Laredo. I said, okay. Long story short, shopped around to Texas, outside of San Antonio. So I live out in the hill country. Don't lock the doors. Everybody knows everybody. Great way of life. And I think Texas is good. And the politics can be strange, and it can be absolutely correct. It just depends on the issue at hand.
What's your long-term strategy for the business?
I don't want to go there yet.
So it's a work in progress.
Work in progress.
Okay.
Is there a heir apparent? or does it become part of some key employees? I think it's the latter.
So it's commendable. You want to keep it as an independently owned,
Yes.
right? You don't want to sell to a.
No, I mean, Woody, at my age now, I'll be 75 in a few months, certainly not concerned with selling it and this nest egg is going to be there, because the train is already, you can see the light at on the train track. So that doesn't really matter to me now.
Mm-hmm.
But keeping it independent and letting them do their thing and run it, they run it now.
Yeah.
That is where I think I want to be.
We had spoken to, we were fortunate enough to interview Joey Russell,
Yes.
and they had an interesting way of doing it. They did an ESOP, an employee
Yes,
stock
employees,
ownership
yeah.
plan,
Mhm.
and it really seemed to work well for them. Keeping it independent, keeping it
Right.
core.
That makes sense.
So best of luck in that. I hope you do keep it local.
Yeah. Yeah.
Independent, local.
Yeah. Time will tell. We'll see. Not gone yet.
Okay. Well, is there anything that we haven't touched on that you'd like to mention or talk about?
Well, the industry's a good industry. Most important is friendships.
Mm-hmm.
You learn from each other.
Right. That's why the importance of the associations.
Yeah, and if people don't avail themselves, and I know a lot of guys that do not, I think that's a mistake.
Why do you think that? That's a good point. 80% Pareto's law, 80% doesn't participate, 20% really does the bulk of the work.
Well, it's not just that. Part of that is that the tree won't grow because somebody's going to take the fruit, someone's done the work. Are they qualified? Can they call up a friend for help? Can they call a friend for advice? And they really can't. Are the third-party stations putting themselves in to let me program for you, let me do this, let me do that? They are. But how does that affect the business that the guy is bringing to the table?
Right.
The classic case of a trunk slammer. He has no idea, nor is he planning for what his life is going to be later on. It's a momentary.
And you know, we call it trunk slammers, but we all started there.
Many
of them.
We
Many
did.
of us.
We all were trunk slammers. We all did this with one truck or what have you. However, the trunk slammer, and I shouldn't use that because it sounds derogatory. They're hiring a group, you peel and stick, somebody programs it, and you go away. The client, the customer, never knows you. There's no value,
Right.
and there's no relationship between you and that customer. Will he ever call you back? Maybe. Well, especially in the residential market, there's no value. He doesn't know you, doesn't care. But somebody else is going to come do that. And I think that was a mistake in our industry. Maybe, but it was headed there. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. It's technology. No.
But it's amazing that so operation is in LA, you spend a significant amount of your time in Texas, but yet you.
Every morning I get up, I look at the service logs, I look at the banks,
Right.
and I still get up and work.
Right.
I still run reports.
Right.
Could I have done that 19 years ago? Probably not. I got to go to the office.
Right.
Yeah.
No, you got to go to work. Should we today allow this remote monitoring, somebody at home in their robe or sitting on the beach in Costa Rica? And I owned a company down in Costa Rica years ago. Should that be allowed today? I don't think so.
Right.
But maybe that's me. That may not be the way of the world. I just, I think people learn from each other.
Absolutely.
And if you're not in an office, that environment, the social skills, the networking, the things you learn that you didn't learn in college, you cannot do by a telework environment.
All right. Well, this has been great.
No.
Anything else?
No, fantastic. So, a career in medicine, family in the medicine field.
None of that.
Put that to the side.
Yeah.
Software development to security. You've seen a lot. You've seen a lot in this industry. So, appreciate everything you do, your participation, and your knowledge.
Yeah, Harry, this is great.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
Yeah, great. Thank you so much.
all right. Thank you.